So we are doing the presentation together, and it's really great to be in this, whatever it is, this global living room, to talk about Orbs and to learn a little bit more about Orbs. And we're excited about this technical possibility to do that.
Yes, and we very much appreciate you, Robin, for putting this on, and Mike and your technical team, Caitlin and everyone in the backstage to make it work. It's quite phenomenal and amazing. Thank you. And a big thank you for all your listeners too, and the amount of inspiring Orb pictures that you have sent to us. So this is really a community effort.
Okay, so what we are planning to do in this 4-part, can you all? I hope you can all see me. So I'm not sure if you can actually all respond, but I assume that you can see us and that you see a slide here, a beginning slide, and let's see. So this is kind of all right. Now we're going to give you at the beginning in this first session a fairly extensive slide presentation on Orbs and on what we've figured out and what others have sent us. And so bear with us for a while. Now we have included a number of slides, photos that you participants sent us. And so I would say the majority of those who sent us slides are already now included in our presentation. You see your names on a yellow or orange background listed so that everybody can clearly see that.
And your pictures sent really confirm the discoveries that we have made. And we also found out that you probably all can tell your own story and discoveries about Orbs, and several of you have written books about the subject matter. Congratulations to you all. So this is just to share our journey of discovery in this magnificent process.
So we titled this presentation, Orbs, Psychoenergetics and Subtle Energies. What do we see, what do we learn? Because really, I mean, everybody has worked on Orbs, many people have worked on Orbs for a long time now. And the question is, what do we learn from all of this? What does it mean? So that's really what we want to address, primarily. Psychoenergetics is the Orbs have a lot to do with psychoenergetics, which is the topic that Bill Tiller, very well esteemed Professor Emeritus of Stanford University, will be presenting in our conversation next.
I hope you can all see now and hear. So this is during the Palm Springs Prophet Conference in 2008. A spiritual retreat during the music performance. The healing event, family constellation with the Hellingers.
In Germany.
And the musicians surrounded by Orbs. On a cruise ship with the Abrahams group. And during fireworks. They show up in all kinds of situations in nature. This is in Alaska. And on the night sky, competing with the moon. Here in a cathedral. And during workshops.
This is one of the healing workshops Gundi's doing.
And here in Abadania at the Casa de Dominacio, where the entities are performing surgeries.
This is in Brazil with John of God. And I'm sorry there's an airplane overhead, we'll have to let it go.
These 100 years old reminiscing about their life. In nature.
Photo by Sandra Underwood.
Under the forest scenery, photo by Dharma Cohen, who wrote the book herself. And here on the sky behind the palm tree.
More orbs. Very, very many orbs. By Carol Bush here.
And here, like a wall of orbs, misty looking. And the horse in the stable has companions with him.
So orbs are among animals. And the moving photo we just got today from Pauline Taylor in New Zealand. This was taken a couple of days, I believe, after the big earthquake in Christchurch. They're always present, even if we don't see them. So the structure of our presentation is, it has 4 elements. The first deals with authenticity. The second with just simply some experiments that we do with orbs, that people have done with orbs. Conveying messages. What do they really want? What are they, and what are they communicating to us? And we will conclude with a brief experience. It's more like a meditation with orbs. So let's talk about authenticity first. And mostly here I'll be talking, Gundi will be talking more at the end when it gets to what does it all mean. So we all know that we can do image processing. This was a picture, one of the first orb pictures we ever took. And processing the image in terms of contrast and even colors is very legitimate. And to bring out the orbs. We are doing, whatever we are doing, we're doing with a whole picture, and therefore it is legitimate. This is an example of dust orbs, and so we're talking quickly about what are orbs, what are not orbs. What, you know, we have to differentiate, we have to be very clear. For example, here we see 3 nice reflections on the lenses of the camera. These are not orbs. Here is the situation where we thought we had a tremendous, exciting number of orbs, and then we took lots of pictures. Gundi took these pictures actually in Glastonbury in our hotel room from our window, and right where all these lines of orbs are pointing, there would be the tour in Glastonbury, and so we thought we were onto something really important, really profound, because they were all lining up in that direction here. Until next morning, we looked at the situation again, and we found out that what we had been looking at is nothing other than a spider web.
Behind the window.
Behind the windows. So one has to be discerning. And obviously this spider web was just a few inches away from the camera. Therefore, it was in just the perfect location for it to show up as orbs. We'll continue with elements of authenticity. Obviously, the main objection that people make, the main criticism or the main critique that people have is if orbs are that there might be dust particles, suspended dust particles, reflections of the flash at dust particles. This is clearly done away with if we have a situation where the orb is behind another object. Here, for example, we have the orb behind the head of the healer, which is about, I don't know what, 10 feet away from the camera. So it is far, far away from this orb zone. And we've looked at this very carefully with many different ways of examining the photo, and there is no question that the orb is behind the head and not in front. So this is an authentic orb. Another element of authenticity would be an orb photographed in rapid motion. And many orb photographers have seen orbs in motion. Here is an example. In fact, we can calculate the speed of motion of this orb. If you do this, you'll come up with a certain, I don't know, that the displacement is a few inches per, and all this happens within 1/1000th of a second, during which the flash was lighting up the scene. And when we do the calculation, this means that the orb was moving at about 350 miles per hour, which is a considerable speed, and dust particles don't move that fast. Here we have Tony Robbins giving a presentation, and here the displacement is, there are even more steps, all within 1/1000th of a second of the flash duration. Here we have 9 discrete steps that we could count. Here, in a photo by Mary Miranda, we see many steps. I didn't count how many. So here, we are going to have a little film strip. And you're going to see, we're first going to explain what you see, and then you'll see the film strip. So the first step is the original segment of a few picture frames. And just to be on the safe side, we contrast enhanced it and showed it at the same original speed. Here, and then we go at a slowed down speed, 10 times slower. And we show this one again. We repeat it. Then we show each of the 3 frames that are involved. We stop it for a few seconds and move on to the next frame, and then stop it for a few seconds and move on. And so here we go. This is where the boy goes, and there is an orb that just zoomed by very quickly. Here you see it again. Okay, now we are going to 10 times slower. Here, those were 3 frames, and now you see again 10 times slower, and here we are holding the frame for a few seconds. Then the next frame, and then the next frame, and then we're out. So everything happened within 3 half frames, which would be 1/60th of a second each. So the observations that we have here is that the orbs move in steps. They do not move as a continuous line, but they move in steps. There was no flash present when this film was taken. So the orb did not get its light from a flash. The motion extends over 3 frames, as we said, so 1/20th of a second each, together. The appearance its appearance of regular orbs, and it was a very simple camera that was used, an iPhone 4. So as a conclusion of this experiment, the external energy source is not a stringent necessity. It is good if they have it, and we'll get to that later in the presentation. Orbs move about 3 feet in 1/20th of a second in 20 discrete steps. And that means in this particular case, they move very slowly, just at about 40 miles per hour. So, okay, here we have another beautiful picture sent us by Patty Weeks. And there we see an orb moving rapidly and actually changing size in this movement. Great picture. Next, evidence of authenticity. The orb is imaged in successive images, and many people have photos like this, where after in a different slide, in a different photograph, the orb has moved from one way to the other. It changed a little bit its size and location and rotation, and that doesn't happen with a dust particle. Here we have an orb on a cruise ship, several orbs actually, but two main ones that we're following. And we are looking at these two orbs, and then it so happened that a year later, the same group was convening on actually that same cruise ship, but it was a year later. And there again are two orbs in this picture here. And we analyzed these orbs, and as in the next photo, we can actually see that. We have, so that was the first event, and that was the second event. And we took the orbs, enlarged them, and put them separately, took them out and from both events. And now we compare them. And if you do that, you can see that they appear to have the very same interiority. They are really very likely the same orbs. Now, so it looks to me, or to us, as if there is no doubt that these are the same orbs or entities behind the orbs. So here is something that was sent to us by a disc jockey, Frank Twitter. And these are phenomenal photos. Here we have just three of them, 9 seconds later and 6 minutes later. And there are very high contrast orbs in each of these photos that you can see here. We've done something with these orbs. We have superpositioned the orbs of the three pictures. So here, this is the same photo from picture 1, and then, okay, in picture 2. So here we have superimposed the second, the orb from the second photo over the first one, and you can see the internal structures are identical. Now we go back. This is again the orb from the first picture. This is a superposition of the one from the second picture. And here is the third picture, and we are superimposing that also on top of it. The structure becomes even clearer, and it clearly indicates all three of them are the exact same orbs. So the question marks are still there. Are these indeed the same orbs in these three different photos? I would say there is very little doubt. It could also be that they are just the same type of orbs. And that's of course a possibility, because there may be very, very many different species of beings in the reality from which the orbs come. And it is conceivable that we are talking about just the same type of beings. For example, a sheep looks like a sheep, looks like a sheep. There isn't very much difference. But they're different sheeps. So anyway, let's continue with the evidence of authenticity. A flash does not, if you have orbs showing when the flash does not illuminate the orb zone, then of course you have something. And again, here in this case, there was an external flash used on the camera, and the flash was pointed upwards, not directly at the scene, not directly at the orbs. So here's kind of the flash sitting on the camera, and the camera was a little different there. So it goes in the direction shown here. The orb zone is in this elliptical circle here in front of the camera. It didn't get any illumination from the flash. So therefore, no dust particles that were in the orb zone were illuminated by the flash. So this really takes the dust particle argument at absurdum. So next, several photos are taken from the same scene with a short time interval, and one shows orbs while others don't, or shows orbs that are very, very different. And all of you have seen this. You take pictures and you see many orbs, and they're all different. So don't have to say much about this. Zoom setting, that's kind of interesting because if you have this is a photo of a stage where the performance was going on in standard focal length. Here we have it in a factor 2 zoom of the camera, and up at the top there is an orb, and the orb has the same sharpness as the background features there, these little dots. So the orb was clearly not near the camera, but about as far away as the stage was. Now we're getting to clean room photography. We're all still trying to, in a way, disprove the orb zone photography argument, or the argument that orbs might be suspended particles. If you have a clean room where there are no particles, by definition, then it's going to be very difficult to argue that it would be a reflection of particles. These particles would actually have to be quite large, about 50 to 100 to 200 microns in size. So here, this is not very clear. It was taken with a camera that doesn't do very good for photos, but I think you can see in the bottom right there is an orb. No question. That orb was taken under clean room conditions. In various cases, orbs were observed without using a flash, and orbs taken on film with cameras other than digital cameras. For example, orbs taken with celluloid films on the old-fashioned cameras. This one here is a photo that was taken without a flash, just daylight. Okay, here we have an orb taken by Ed Foos, who is a friend and a pioneer of orb photography on regular celluloid emulsion films. And this orb was taken with a regular, old-fashioned, high-resolution camera. And most importantly, we think that the proof authenticity of orbs comes along with a demonstration of their intelligence. So here we are doing some experiments with orbs that indicate their intelligence. Communication with orbs. Unusual shapes and interior features. Faces in orbs. Unusual imaging mechanisms. And some left brain stuff which we may not have much time to get into, but here we're going to start with this picture.
Well, this was a family event, and as you can imagine, sometimes family members are the greatest skeptics, and we had just talked about orbs, and then ventured into playing this game and Scrabble game and putting down the words. And believe it or not, it was a big aha experience for all of us. The last word and the winning word was orb, as if to say, hey, just wake up and take it in and consider the possibilities of there is so much more that we cannot really explain.
If any of you who have done Scrabble know that this is a very, very unusual situation. I mean, it takes a lot. So anyway, here we go. Communication with orbs. I want to show with this, start with this beautiful picture sent to us this morning by Claudia Zimmermann in Germany. And what are they doing? They are holding an orb in between their hands, as if they were talking to it. So here we have a situation where we made a very specific request and orbs showed up in the photo.
Yes, actually, this was the farewell party of a seminar grounds where we had spent decades of seminars and often stayed in this cabin. And Klaus just, we walked by on this farewell event, and Klaus just in his mind said, well, seminar leaders, we are honoring you. How about showing up in this photo? And if you look closely, you see two orbs, one on the roof and one on the brown wall of the side, as if to say, yes, we are here.
A friend of ours, Reza Ansari, sent us these photos. He has a slightly handicapped son, and in this case, he's very clearly looking at the orb, as if he was communicating with it. This is a series of photos sent to us by Melissa Davenport. Her 5-year-old son was looking at the moon at a broadcast on the moon for children on television, and she said, "Well, why don't we take a photo and have an orb appear?" So on the first photo, the orb appeared. Then she said, "Well, let's draw a picture of the moon. Let's put it on the floor and let's see if we can have an orb that appears in that picture in the same size of that than the picture painting of the moon." So they did that. And obviously, if you put a painting down and look at it at an angle, this is not appearing as a sphere, but it's appearing, or a circle, but it's appearing as in an elliptic form. And so, not one, but two orbs decided to appear. One in the size kind of roughly equal to the large and the small axis, to the ellipses. So then they continued their game, and they said, "Well, let's draw a happy face and see if we can find orbs that would become the eyes to that happy face." But first, before we continue here, look, where does the boy look? He looks at the orb. Another photo, a few seconds later, and there the boy looks at the orb now in a position roughly of one of the eyes that they wanted to see. So sometimes the communication is very different from what is expected, because they were unable to see the two orbs in the positions of the eye. And so finally they said, well, what about taking these tennis balls and showing the orbs where they are supposed to be? And so the tennis balls marking the eyes. Well, they put the tennis balls there, and one orb is kind of a little, there in the background, not quite knowing how to show himself, how to do it. And then after a while, the boy got the great idea to push one of those tennis balls away, and an orb put itself into that position. Here we have another person, Dharma Cohen, who sent us several pictures, clearly communicating with an orb, seeing it. Unusual shapes. A person by the name of Ken Smith sent us these two photos, and we found them very interesting, because in two subsequent photos, sequential photos, we see orbs in different shapes. Look at the orb at the arm of the lady. It's making a statement.
It's really making a statement how beautiful she is, and it also demonstrates how playful orbs are. They really are quite creative.
It's sometimes just through the shape that they communicate. Same camera, no lens effect. The message occurs by a shape. Here we have a situation at a spiritual healing event. And the orb shows, in various pictures, shows up in the form of a star or a cross there. Here we have, here we have the same picture that we showed before, with many orbs as helpers. And this picture was sent to us by Yara Jackson, who I think is also among you here today. And she saw orbs with holes, which is also something that we have reported in our first book back in 2007, the Orb Project. And we'll hear probably more about this from Miceal Ledwith next week, next Sunday. Here the photographer sees an angel in the interior of the orb. I must admit I cannot see it, but probably some of you can. But when it came to this photo, I became convinced that there's something to it, to seeing faces. That was very clear evidence to me. So sometimes it takes a stark example to make it to turn a non-believer into a believer. In this case, me, in believing that that there can be faces in orbs. Here, my question was, who is it, rather than is there a face? So we took actually more than several pictures, and here this is a subsequent photo where there is no face and no orb, and what if the background features have any impact on the visibility of faces? And there is clearly something to it. The background does you, but it's not all features of the face I explained in the wall. So is there intelligence involved? In our book, Orbs, Their Mission and Messages of Hope, we go into this particular photo with some more depth than we can say now, because it is, the conclusion is, yes, there is really intelligence involved. We have some unusual imaging mechanisms. I mentioned Orbs, celluloid emulsion film. These are some more photos taken by Ed Voos in Holland, the Dutch photographer. And that is unusual. Here we have some, all I want to say here, we don't have enough time to go into the details. This is an interesting situation where an orb was photographed from the side. There is a mirror in the back there that reflects flash, and due to that, the orb was directing itself to the mirror rather than to the camera. And we have a very different picture from the side. There are two different pictures taken like that, and what we have is the direction. We do a line here between the reflection in the mirror and the orb here. And this gives interesting clues about this particular kind of orb. Clues are that it confirms that orbs are normally looking at a light source, which is normally right the camera itself and the flash. But it appears to be a disk, not a sphere, when viewed from the side. Only when you imagine that you would look at this orb from the front would you see it as a circle, or it would be suggested to be a sphere. In this case, you can see that the orb has a wake, and it also has a nozzle. There's a wake here. So it's in motion, probably going down. And it has a nozzle at the front. And so if you're looking at it straight ahead, then you would see a normal round orb, and with some features that may have to do with the nozzle. So that's why they usually appear round. But they may not at all be spheres, as we always thought they might be. So let's move on from here to the projection of to orbs, or projection of thought. We had this person, whom we know, he suggested to take a photo after he projected thought energy to the side of his head, and then said that the photo should be taken. And so this was done, and this is the result of it. The photo was very different in appearance from a normal, regular kind of orb. So projection of thought forms are different in appearance from orbs. This observation validates Professor Filler's intention experiments that there is that we can project quite a bit of energy with our minds that can have an influence on material matter. And we'll talk about this in some more detail, I would hope, in 3 weeks, when Dr. Tiller is on this problem. This is very exciting to talk to him about this. And this could explain subtle energy heating in principle. So that would be the time when we talk about this. Human intention versus manifestation from a morphogenetic field. That would be the topic then. Here's another example of a projected a thought projection. We know these two people, and they had a scientific discussion. They're both medical doctors, and they had a discussion about the subtle energy that and the influence of subtle energy on health. And, this all appearing in between them may very well indicating that there's something here. By Linda. And the question is, what is that feature there? My answer is, I don't know. But let's go into a little more detail, because these kind of features have been observed by other people. This is a photo by Kathy Rock, and here by Mary Miranda. We're enlarging it a little bit here. This is cropped, and this is enhanced. And here you begin to see an inner life of this thing. And this inner life is much more pronounced in this great photo by our friend Titika, who lives, she lives in Vienna, and she sent us this photo. Here you can see that there is a displacement of what looks like an orb in over this creature here. And there may be as many as 50 discrete steps that were all happening within the 1,000th of a second that it took to illuminate this photo. So this would, if you really calculate this could lead to about 10,000 kilometers per hour velocity to make this. And that would be if it was a continuous motion, but it is actually about steps. So do we have quantum leaping from one place to the next in discrete quantum steps? It's very likely possible. Here, this lady, Carol Danforth, sent us this photo, very remarkable.
So it's quite miraculous to actually catch pictures like this,
Yes.
If you know how fast they move. how quick they can expand, how fast they can, you know, become small and appear in different colors. It's amazing.
This may not be orbs. We don't know, but the picture showing the energy coming out of her hands or being related to her hands is remarkable. Now we're getting to the point of our presentation where we are talking about messages, helping in various ways.
So here's an event. This photo was sent to us by a woman she took this photo during the wedding of her daughter, and she felt a little sad that her son, who had passed on a year or 2 years before this joyful event, could not be present. And then she took the photo and saw the big orb on the back, and her feeling was, he is present, he is here right during the event, and she felt very much comforted knowing that he was present. This was sent to us by Star Torfil, and the 3 women are celebrating and having a good time. And the woman on the right, Star, has this bright orb on her left, and again she felt this is the presence of her deceased husband.
Very similar situation. Affirming. All is well.
During a presentation, you see the orb on the speaker's hand who is making a point. And actually, he always, you know, was very much aware that some higher consciousness was coming through his presentation.
Yes.
And again, during this same event, many orbs are in the room. During the same intensive, there's always the custom to put out baskets for intentions for prayer requests. We took a sequence of photos, and here you see one orb right under the basket, as if to say, yes, your prayers are being attended to. We heard your requests. In the Palo Alto Church, on the altar, you see a big orb sitting right under the message, with God, all things are possible. As if to say, just take this in, it's important. And here, there's a globe on the table in the background, and the orb places itself right next to the countries, and then later focuses at the time on the Middle East, where at the time we were experiencing some difficulties. Again, their presence is with us all the time.
As if I were to say, the world is really dear to us.
During a healing event, and this little girl and the 3 people are surrounded by orbs. Here in this picture it's not so clear, but here when they are in hand, you can see their presence more clearly. So who is doing the healing? During a conversation, a consulting session, an orb placed itself right in the middle of the 2 people, and when we showed it to the person who did the consultation, he said, of course, my guides are always present, and this just shows it. During a surgery, a visible surgery at the Casa de Dominacio with John of God, and we always know and are told that even though one person is only being operated to convince the skeptics that something is happening, you know, there is a presence attending to many more in this room. And here you see the gentleman, one orb right on his back, on his neck. And then people are asked to put their healing requests into a basket here And again, an orb places itself right above it and demonstrates, yes, beings of light are attending to these requests. And joyful events are always filled with, accompanied with orbs. And here is a mariachi band playing joyful music, and people are dancing, and they are quite visible on in front of the black curtain. During a concert at the White House, you see the piano player has an orb right on his head, and then there's one on the piano, as if to say, well, we help you to remember your tunes and lead everything and make sure the tune comes out clearly. The captain's address on a ship, and actually his address was quite meaningful. He talked about all those different ships, wooden ships and metal ships, and then here with an international crowd all working together and cooperating. And while he was speaking, we took this photo. And then later we showed it to the waiter, and he was very skeptical and didn't believe any of it. And again, a photo was taken, and when he saw the orb right above his head, he was, convinced and started exploring the phenomenon of orbs and showed it to all his colleagues. So that's what usually happens if a skeptic catches his own orbs in his pictures and they are meaningful, then things turn around and the journey of wanting to discover begins. During events with the Hellinger constellation work, we see a big orb here in the ceiling. And Bert Hellinger is very convinced and affirms over and over again that the work is guided by something from a higher dimension. And all we have to do is show up and be willing and discover, and then incredible things happen. And this photo shows this. And another, here Bert Hellinger on the right, and almost 1 meter high orb in front of him, advising him what to do next. And here is the big hall where the constellation work takes place, and it's filled with orbs, guiding the event, helping us to move forward in love, as he would say. A girl, actually our granddaughter, who had been very challenged, physically challenged, and here she is having a joyful dress-up time, and it looks like her guardian angel is right behind her. These girls dancing and having fun, and again, the orbs are in the room accompanying them.
Is it a miracle? Well, this girl, definitely it is a miracle. She was, she had a very serious heart defect, could not hear, was totally deaf.
And here she is almost 2 years old and was not able, she did not yet have her cochlear implants, was attending this joyful event with friends, and we were a little bit concerned how she could handle it. But look on the blue cube in the back, the white bright orb places itself as if to say, well, we are protecting her and helping her all along. And this is actually what happened.
We've noticed very often, very frequently, that orbs appear in areas and places where they can actually be seen, rather than on very busy backgrounds.
And again, these girls had been on a hike through a mountainous area here in California, when one of the mothers remembered, mountain lions had been seen in the area, and she was concerned and called the mother who led the girls. And then as they returned from the bottom of the hill, she took a photo, and who accompanied the girls and helped them stay on the path. During a birthday celebration, the little one blows out the candles, and an orb shows up right in front of her, and in the back of the window, so who is accompanying the presentation. And this was when the healer appreciated the singer of his intensive, and the orb showed up right on her mouth, and when we showed her the picture, she said, oh, of course, when I'm really singing my best, the spirit is singing through me. So this is what this indicates. I received help from the realm of unlimited possibilities. During a healing demonstration of network chiropractic work, and again, the chiropractor felt the same. His work is always, guided from the other realm. During an engagement party, a joyous event, in the presence of others, beings of light. And then these young women are getting ready to run a marathon, and they have a lot of support. Notice the orbs on those critical parts that really need to be strong during their bike ride and run. Actually, it was a triathlon with biking, running, and swimming.
As if they were to say, watch out these various areas in your body and don't overexert yourself, especially the heart.
In San Giovanni Rotondo, the place where we saw the sarcophagus of Padre Pio, and we were very reluctant to even take a photo and just took one, but look, the orbs in the background, fast moving, as if to say the presence is here. Yes, and Padre Pio was said to be able to be in 2 places or several places at the same time.
Yeah.
During a special memorial celebration at Stanford Cathedral, and of course in those events you're not allowed to take photos, so we just took one when everyone left and the presentation was finished, and look how many listeners and were present at the event. This is during Wanda's presentation in Chicago, and in the beginning, Ananda Giriji was just, accompanied by a few, and then during the end of his presentation, the curtain was filled with different size orbs. At the Casa de Dominación in Brazil with John of God, a big bright orb during the day hanging in the bleacher while all the people below are waiting to see the entity. And here during, at the end of a healing workshop, and all the participants actually felt quite inspired, and we felt very much guided by beings of light during this workshop. But they also accompany us on our first-time journeys in unknown territory. This traveler had traveled up the coast of California, and she had never done this in the dark, and was a little skeptical and actually apprehensive when she arrived. This photo was taken, and again we see the guides and who accompanied her and brought her safely to her destination. Addressing the skeptic, a photo taken in Hindelang from the hotel room, and it was shown to my critical brother, who was not into, taking orbs seriously, and so he just said, well, take another photo more to the left from where we hear the cowbells, and again, orb showed up as if to say, here, just, you have to ask and we will listen. And when he saw this, he became interested in this phenomena and researched it himself. So they do listen, and they are intelligent and cooperate. And this picture was taken by Linda Horton during an Orb presentation at the Prophet Conference. And first of all, we felt their presence during the presentation, and then we also felt that they wanted to point out what was really important. And the message here on the poster is, work cooperatively for the unity and well-being of all. And so it's almost telling us, yes, pay attention to that. That's really important. That's your calling and your challenge. Another Orb presentation in Sedona, May 2007, Dr. Ledwith and Klaus. There were lots of Orbs in the audience and on stage. It was just very inspiring. So it seems like they like the message to be broadcast. And again, here another conference, this time in Glastonbury, Prophets Conference 2009. And there were lots of Orbs. And this is during the Science and Consciousness Conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Again, one photo taken the last minute, real quick, and here the Orbs place themselves close to planet Earth, as if to say, yes, we like this message and we want to help you on your journey toward wholeness. And after, you want to tell that story, Klaus?
Yeah, it's maybe a change of pace. We had a 2-hour-long phone interview in a hotel in Santa Fe, which was at this occasion of the Science and Consciousness Conference. And after this interview, we were a little bit exhausted, and we went out and on a walk. And we went to the backside of the hotel, and the whole backside looked like this here, with these hotel windows and little balconies. And we identified our room to be up there, and so we had the idea maybe we should just shoot a photo and see if there are Orbs indicating which our hotel room was. And so here, this is the one Orb placed itself on the top right side and the other on the top left side of our hotel room, bottom left side of our hotel room. And this was the only photo we took because we wanted to not confuse the issue with large numbers of photos taken.
And here a photo marks, this is in Austria at the Tischenmeier Gut, and Bert and Sophie Hellinger were residing in this room up there, and they were in charge of the seminar. And we just for a chance took a photo and said, well, let's see if they can find out where they are. And yes, they marked the room.
Well, we skipped this one here. This is too long a story, but we'll skip it. But we have to go through the motion of seeing the photos. It's right in our living room here. So sometimes Orbs can be used to help decisions. In this case here, the decision was whether this house was to be bought, and the question was asked, and this was the answer. This is the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, and there are numerous interesting Orbs showing up in this picture here.
Fast-moving ones.
Fast-moving, yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, an Orb cooperating with an Orb hunt.
Yes, and this photographer was new to the subject matter, and was wondering whether orbs would show up, and before he took his first orb picture, actually an orb placed itself right next to his camera.
He wanted to wait until it got dark.
Yes, but it must have been a very successful orb hunt for him and everyone present there.
This is the first time that I noticed an orb or orbs showing up in a photo in a newspaper. This is just a simple local newspaper in northern Germany showing several orbs there at an accident. Lisa Bradley, who may be among those listening now, sent us this photo, and again she mentioned that she really liked to play her instrument, her flute. It's a special kind of flute,
yeah,
an Irish flute, in the barn. And there are numerous listeners here, and a lot of the orbs are very small, similar to the ones to her in the picture on the right, and a few of the large ones on the left. They were comforting to her, and she was reminded of what appears to be past life experiences when she was also playing this instrument. Rhonda Leslie sent us this photo. Rhonda is a friend of ours, and she had an experience in Denver where she was, anyway, she said, I was exhausted and sleep deprived, angry, because a teacher had told me that my project, which she was working on, a Spirit Energy Orbs photography project, would never be approved by the Master's Thesis Board. And so she found this street sign there, and had took this photo and on a mini tripod, and this is what came out. And when her thesis advisor saw this photo, I think there was a change of heart coming from it. Rhonda also took this photo of a friend of ours after when he received his certificate for studies in what it was? Special courses. And so, as if to say, now you have taken enough courses, and now it's time for you to apply, joyfully apply what you've learned. The heart transplant.
So this girl on the right has an orb sitting right on her heart, almost like a medal, and she received a heart transplant as a baby. There's another photo.
We got this photo from Gundi's brother, whose friend's daughter we are seeing here. The orb, and this is just a regular photo taken with classmates. And another photo at the same, very similar location, just a few minutes later, again shows an orb at the location of her heart, as if the orb wanted to make a statement, a very clear statement, that this is indeed a wondrous situation, that a person has been living with a transplanted heart for this long time, and is going strong.
And the support is still there and
continues. The support continues and needs to continue. Our friend says, I often invite my sometime somewhat disabled children to join me when I work. And while I was looking at pictures of orbs, I prayed for the children, and then took their pictures. And these The orbs are all around his children all the time. I'm showing this photo because this friend is in a serious health condition himself right now with his heart. So we are thinking of him. The orb's going to say, we hear you. We are around you. And it's for real. We're there. Resolving karma. We want to conclude this section with this photo that was sent to us by Freda Shealy. And she photographed her library and saw an orb at a certain book on the right there. And she saw two faces in this orb. And you have to look very closely to see these faces. She described them in all detail as if she, would see that the one face, there's two women, you can see them there. Anyway, then her husband just said, who is an English professor, he said, well, just read the book. And so she did. And she found out enormous, first we went to, she did two photos here, and we just want to demonstrate that it's not just a fluke. The subsequent photo has, when one enlarges the area, there are no signs of faces. It's exactly the same area taken in the subsequent photo. So these pictures are clear. Now, when she opened the book, she saw this picture here, which is a picture of the author and her cousin. And this book is by George Eliot, The Mill on the Floss. The book is really an autobiography of George Eliot. She, Freda, our friend who shot this picture, then of course got very interested in this book and in trying to find out the message of what was being conveyed to her. And she found out that there were enormous similarities between the lives, her own life and the life of George Eliot. And George Eliot died, she learned, of a kidney failure at the age of 55, something like that. And she then, Freda, our friend, then was reminded that her doctor had told her about a week prior to this, taking this photo, that she had to get rid of a painkiller that she was taking, had been taking for many years, for a long time. And she said that if you don't abandon this painkiller, you will get serious kidney trouble. This was finally, the message finally got to her. There's more to this story, and the story is actually written up in a book that Freda Shealy wrote. So, concluding here, astrophysicist Sir Fred Hoyle predicted in the 1950s, 60 years ago, once we are able to take a photograph of the Earth from outer space, humanity will experience a profound leap in consciousness. One Earth, one humanity. Could it be that with the possibility of orb photography, we have begun another quantum leap in human consciousness? Perhaps this time we are to realize that we are not only physical, but also spiritual beings. One Earth, one humanity, one spirit.
Okay, so I'm going to share the other files now. We have a lot of files from attendees who have sent in.
There are some more pictures. We have already shown quite a few of those, but maybe if someone has a question, we could get into that. But do remember, even if you're running out of time today, we will have plenty of time next Sunday when we have Miceal Ledwith join us, because Miceal is the co-author of our first book, the 2007 book, The Orb Project, and he has a huge amount of orb pictures in his arsenal. So we're looking forward to that. But so, Caitlin, here, you have the ball.
Okay, Caroline Blakemore, she sent in a few pictures. This is one of them. And she doesn't have a mic, so I'm going to ask. She writes, do you still feel that the orbs create the mists and fog that are sometimes photographed with and without orbs in the shots?
The orbs create the mist.
Yes, it's the we need to say what are really orbs, and we haven't done that. In my mind, orbs are emanations from beings outside of our reality. They are not actually the beings themselves. They are emanations. It's just like if you could picture that I was holding a flashlight in my hand, and I can control this flashlight. I can shine it anywhere, especially when it's dark, and you could see the effect of it. And the flashlight that are pointing somewhere would be, or let's say a pointer, would be the orb. Then that is the orb. So it is an emanation from something that is very conscious. Now, these conscious beings are capable of using orbs as to bring a point across, and they can do this in various ways. And so, if people see if there is something, a lot of orbs in the picture, or a lot of almost like a nebula of orbs, maybe that again has to do with how they want to bring it across to us.
And Caroline, you sent us one picture with huge orbs with almost golden light covering the whole area. And you mentioned that you were struck by the beauty of it. And it just looks like a new sky made up of orbs. And that sometimes happens when there are so many, that it's almost like a field of mist. And just a few shine really bright and distinct. And the rest is just like a big field. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. And I put up that picture onto the screen. It's beautiful. There's another question from Caroline, too, that I'm going to ask for her. She writes, I've captured very many large red orbs, and in each of these photos, there are over 80. A triangle appears in the left lower corner of the shot. Have you ever experienced this?
Well,
your picture with the golden orbs is definitely unique. And I would say, every orb picture, every people take is unique in its own way. We have seen different shapes, and sometimes pronounced, sometimes not so pronounced. But I think the conclusion for us is to just ask ourselves, what does it mean to me? What is the feeling that it communicates or strikes in me? And in that usually is the answer for the photographer, and sometimes also for the viewer.
Yeah, it's also possible that sometimes we see pictures that are beautiful, where actually it does not appear to be orbs. I'm not so sure if this particular picture that you're seeing here actually does show orbs, or other kinds of light reflections that just so happen to be. I just don't know. There are so many things we don't know, and we just have to realize that and have to be somewhat cautious. But even if there are no real orbs, that the message may still be there.
Yes.
You see, it is not, is it real, is it not, as much is there a message for me, or is there not?
Yes, and actually we had many we had many amazing photos being sent to us where it was doubtful whether some of the circles of light were orbs. But does it really matter if for the photographer, you know, there is an answer to a question or an inspiration or the feeling of being listened to and supported? The universe can provide answers in many different ways. So just take it as a gift and see it, what it means to you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. It's a beautiful response. Our next question, we're going to try Claudia again. So, Claudia writes, I would like to know why some people take photos of orbs and others don't.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, and it often comes up. And actually, if we share our own process of taking orb photos, we noticed once we had noticed them and paid attention to them and really showed interest and excitement about them, the number of photos increased by day, really. And so I think since there is intelligence behind it, they pay attention to who really wants to see us and who is ready and who has a question and who is open to this. So,
and this paying attention actually means has to do. It comes from a much larger body of consciousness than ours, because they can see into the future. These beings that are behind orbs, they are not limited by time and space as we are, and so they know whether or not it makes sense for them to make the effort to show up in your photos. So if you are taking these beautiful photos of orbs, and the one that you showed and that we incorporated in our presentation was, I mean, we found just beautiful, the orb between your hands.
Yeah, it shows the playfulness
right.
too.
Yes,
you know?
yes, and so that is clearly an indication that they want to be in your pictures because they know that you're going to do something with it.
Mm-hmm. However, then sometimes it's also true that they show up around people who are not yet interested in them at all. We have many pictures of those, and we kept wondering, well, what's the meaning here? They are not ready, maybe yet, to pay attention to them, but maybe down in the future. So there are many answers.
Thank you. We have another question from Claudia, too. I'm going to ask now. She writes, Claudia, and I hope I pronounced this right, Renate, have a question. Do the Heinemans also have photos from UFOs? She sent one of those in an email, and they look like jellyfish.
Well, what's the connection between orbs and UFOs? There may be an enormous one. And actually at the same conference, at the first conference on orbs that was organized by the Great Mystery people, there was a talk by a person who was really specializing in UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Gilliland from
yeah,
Mount Shasta.
Gilliland. And he so there may be a great, but we don't really know. That's what I'm trying to say. So yes, there are speculations that there is this correlation, but we don't know. The same thing would hold for crop circles. There has been the suggestion that orbs may in fact be the vehicles, or have been the vehicles, to make crop circles. What blows the mind is the difference in size. Orbs are very small, crop circles are very big. We assume that these UFOs are very big and the orbs are very small. But then this is a human construct and a human explanation, and there may not at all be any difference at all in terms the significance of the size.
But one thing could be sure, that there are many ways they, from the field of possibilities, try to get our attention. So first it was crop circles, and now it's orbs, and people, everyone with a digital camera can see them. And so they are very creative in getting our attention. That's our conclusion, our personal conclusion.
We are going to be talking about the energetics of orbs and seeing orbs and the relevance of that in when we get together with Bill Tiller, because this is fascinating. We do know that to create an orb on, and this is actually diverting a little bit, to create an orb on a photo plate or on in a digital camera takes about somewhere of the order of 100 to 1,000 photons. And that is not very much. The energy of that is about 10 to minus 16 amp seconds. And that is the same amount of energy that we have that we're producing with our minds constantly, and that we know is in our cells to maintain the memory of our cells to function properly. And so there may be an enormous correlation between that and the whole issue of health. And so again, we'll talk about it with Professor Teller on the program.
Okay, great. Thank you. And our next question is from someone with a mic and camera. And Professor J. Paul de Vierville, are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Great. If you want to send your video feed. Oh, you did.
Okay. You have it?
Yep.
Oh, thank you very much for this presentation. It was very enlightening. And I do think this has to do, obviously, with light and health. My question had to do with crop circles in the sense of the relationship, and you've started to address that. But I was also curious what might be the relationship with the torus function, the torus form. Can you hear me?
I have to say I don't know. It would be too much of a speculation. I am not familiar enough with that field to give a well-educated, maybe Tiller or Miceal would be better persons to. I hope that's an acceptable answer. Okay.
Look forward to next week.
Yeah, you could look forward to next week, or you could also maybe cast some more light onto your own question by explaining what you have in mind when you talk about torus.
The torus is as it's being displayed, and there's a new film out called thrivemovement.com, and they're looking at this as part of the new dynamics for zero-point energy. And I'm wondering if there seems to be a similarity or comparison here, that orbs might be that initial threshold to this level of consciousness from coming on the other side of the veil or the vacuum. And it's very speculative, but they visualize this quite beautifully.
Yes, actually now I've heard about this, and it is very intriguing. I mean, it's a possibility. That's all I can say. It really is speculative, but so is much of the Orbs research speculative. Now, so that's all I can say right now. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And our next question is Jane Mao, who has a mic. Jane, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Good to see you too.
And aloha to all of you. I'm started to ask this question, but I believe someone else possibly asked it, and it was addressed, was the fact that why, with so many people taking pictures and videos, why only a few show up in the millions of people who take pictures. And so it was addressed that it could be, is it our consciousness elevating, or like you said, is it those of us who really want to see, we want to make known the unknown and be able to see these orbs and have them show themselves to us? So
Thank you for this question. I would like to first answer it with a doubt that it is as few people as you seem to think. It appears that very, very many people do see orbs
Take photos
and take photos of orbs. I mean, the body of evidence with orbs is huge, and it is increasing at an enormous pace. So to call this few, I'm not so sure if I would agree with it. And then once we have noticed, and many other people have noticed too, that once orbs appear and reach the consciousness of the people taking the photos, that at that point in time they appear more and more frequently. We have noticed a factor of about 100, meaning that initially every 100th photo or so showed an orb, and now it's about every photo on average, depending if you want to see one. So there is, and this increase is very real, and you will notice it in your own photos as well. Now you do have to make it a little easy for them, because there are energetics involved, and the energetics are that it does take energy, although very little, but it does take energy of about 10 to the minus 16 watt seconds to make this imprint of an orb on a CCD charge plate in a camera. So that energy needs to be produced. They try, apparently there is a mechanism by which they can produce this energy, but by taking it out of the light from the flash. But in many cases, as we have seen, orb photos are taken without a flash, and also on different cameras. And so we do have to. There is a mechanism by which they can generate the energy by themselves. But orb photos are being seen much more frequently.
And then in addition, as we have seen in some of the pictures, they want us to be playful. They want us to have patience and be detached. And now with digital photography, we can take thousands and thousands of photos because, we don't have to pay for printing. And so don't give up too soon. Maybe sometimes it's a test of the patience and for us individuals. And when we're ready, they definitely show up. We have seen this over and over again, also with people who were really skeptic. I mean, how awesome it is if a skeptic asks, take a photo here of this scene, and then it actually shows up, So just don't give up, and if you're really interested, have them continue to take photos, and they will show up.
Let's keep in mind, though, that orbs are not objects.
Yeah.
They are emanations from sentient beings. Therefore, they choose whether or not they want to show up. If you photograph a house, then that house is there, and if you take the picture, it will undoubtedly be in your photo. But if you want to photograph an orb, it's like, do they want to show up in your photo or do they not?
Yeah.
It is not up to you, it's up to them.
And
it's a different situation.
And maybe sometimes, when they show up a lot in your pictures, maybe there is a message for you and an assignment that you have, which could be a fun one. Several people have sent us pictures and they actually wrote their own book. it's a profound book and it's beautiful. So they, in their circle of friends, and they have a special assignment. That's how we see it. Be playful, have fun, and yeah, see it as a gift from the other realm. Thanks for the question.
Oh, thank you. That's a great segue for the next question too, because on the screen, as you can see, I'm going to ask this for Dennis because he doesn't have a camera. And if you can see on the screen, there's in the upper right-hand corner like a fairy-looking orb. And his question is, in this photo taken by Kathy Rao, actually, who's also an attendee, what is the strange object? Is that a fairy?
Oh, I don't see the photo. How can we get the picture?
Oh, yeah. This is the one right here. We address that try to address it in our presentation, that it appears like a fairy. Mm-hmm. At first, when I first saw these pictures and heard people talk about fairies, I thought, you must be out of your mind. Mm-hmm. It is, how can anybody take a picture of a fairy? It is, how can I say this? The orbs show up to people in a way, in a form in which the orbs, or the beings behind the orbs, believe they can catch the attention of those seeing the photo. Mm. So if a person is somehow expecting to see a fairy or is in tune with that somehow, the orbs will show up in the form of a fairy. If an orb, if a person, or a light being, or if a person likes to see faces, or is convinced, is in tune with seeing faces in certain formations of clouds or whatever, they will show up in faces. It's different forms. If a person is in tune with shapes, then they will show up in specific shapes. We saw this lady with the diamond. Mm. So it is all a question of how are we inclined to see something. Listen. So if it is a fairy, yes, the orbs make this fairy by displacing them all over the place within this short amount of time, 50 times, 100 times, to draw the picture of the fairy.
And there are actually authors who have done a whole presentation and captured pictures of fairies in different shapes. Yeah.
We got one question from a person some time ago who saw orbs lining up in triangles, in geometric configurations. The orbs were not triangles, but it was, let's say, 3 orbs forming a triangle. And they were trying to see if that had a meaning. And yes, if that person is inclined to see geometric shapes that way, that's how they will communicate.
Different ways to get our attention.
It is good to see that the world has great varieties of that there are great varieties of orbs showing up.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I do notice that we are, time has progressed, and so you are the moderator. So you need to decide when to close this session.
Well, are you able to take another question or two?
Certainly, as far as we're concerned, no problem.
Okay, great. So our next question is from Maureen Balam, who actually had a few problems with her sound, and she finally made it on. So, Maureen, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Good. My question is, I was wondering if either of you had, when you're dealing with orbs and taking photographs, if you had ever felt that the orbs wanted you to do something for them or join them, anything like that.
felt many times that the presence of the orbs coached us along in the project and helped us, let's say in the interview or in a presentation, and pointed out things that were important or unimportant. Yes.
So the wanting us to do something was more like conveying messages to us to do something. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the feeling has been there very often. Usually in an affirming way.
Mm-hmm. Or, for example, there were times when one, the project wasn't completed and one had doubts about certain aspects. And then almost magically a situation arrived where we were called to take a picture of an orb in a setting, and it brought the explanation. So it's kind of, the answers come in a rather creative way. Yeah, in pictures and situations.
So if you see a photo with an orb, you are invited to see this as an attempt of communication, very personal to you, and see, is there something that I need to see? What is it that I need to see? Often, or most of the time, these orb communications are very personal to the person taking the picture or the person shown in the photo.
And perhaps the most basic challenge here is really to tune in and ask the question and then sense and feel what is the answer, and then when you are called to action, follow through. It's really a hard decision. And maybe this is a new way for us to open our heart and be more in tune, and then act accordingly and know it's the right thing.
I might add something to this general question, and which is very personal. For me personally, this whole story of orbs has been a revelation and a demonstration that our reality, that what we see and hear and sense and feel, that is not all, but that there is a much larger reality outside of ourselves that tries to get in touch with us, that tries to communicate and make us aware, yeah, we are here, we are ready to help you.
Thank you. So, is it okay to ask another question?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, great. This one is from Virginia Hummel, who's actually, her orb photo is in Wayne Dyer's new book. So she doesn't have a mic, so I'm going to ask for her. Have you ever seen an orb with your physical eyes? And have you ever done any experiments to manifest an orb between your hands, like the photo of the two women? Thank you.
Well,
many times it seemed like there was an orb in the air, in the distance to take a picture of it, but I couldn't say, I have really seen it. All I can say is I knew, now take a picture, and then I found out, yes, they were the orbs. So, but different people have different gifts, and some can actually really see them bright and clear, we are told, and that's a wonderful gift.
There, in our book, Orbs, Their Mission and Messages of Hope, we report about one person who was with an orb, who was visited by a couple of orbs for the duration of about 2 hours. And so she very clearly noticed it, saw it the entire time. And so, yeah, there are different levels of awareness with regard to these kind of phenomena.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there is a reason why people normally do not see them. That is just simply the way that this whole experience of life is designed. We are all beings temporarily in a I would say material form, but the essence of us goes way beyond. And we are in this material form for a very specific reason that, in my opinion, has to do with consciousness and with increasing consciousness, so that the whole essence of consciousness is increased. If we were to see the orbs, if we all were to see it, if we all would see that which is not real, not of this world, if we would see this as very real, then the mystical would be taken out of it. Then the actual possibility of becoming more conscious would be impeded. I would say we could get into more of that maybe in one of the next meetings.
But in the meantime, let's just marvel and appreciate the wonderful people have, you know, and there is so much diversity and so much magnificence, and this is what this is to remind us all, to be in awe and wonder and great appreciation on our journey through life.
If you can see auras, if you can see orbs, or anything like this, it's a great gift. It's a beautiful gift. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, so we have questions from 2 other people if you want to run through them quickly. Or if you want to do a wrap-up, that's okay too, however you feel.
Maybe we should take these 2 and then wrap up, if it's okay with your timing.
Yeah. Okay, so this next question is from Virginia Daly, who sent in a photo, and I'm going to flip to that. And this is kind of similar to the last question. Wait, that's not it. Here we go. And Virginia Daly writes, are you able to feel the presence of orbs more strongly at one time compared to another?
Yes.
Yes. I feel I would answer it a little differently. Are you feeling the presence of beings from a different reality? And I would say yes. Are you feeling? Are you sensing that there is more to life than what you can see? Yes, definitely. And the orbs have actually helped me enormously for that. I do not actually see the orbs normally, but I sense the presence. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you. And the last person in questions is Patty Weeks, whose photo is up. It's the gorgeous rainbow orb photo. And she doesn't have a mic, so I'm going to ask. She writes, I'm wondering if your recent orb pictures are evolving in any way from your first photos.
Good question. I think they are. They are more pointed. They are. They are not random as they used to be. They are pointed with whatever they want to say. We are beginning to see to get a message almost directly when yeah they it's hope, help, and love. These three you know, we are not alone. Gundi, maybe you want to add.
And there is incredible mystery, incredible magnificence, and beauty, and they want to point toward that. And the ancient Greek would describe God as truth, beauty, and goodness. And I think the orbs remind us of that too. And we have just given a name to some of these significant things in life, and now here we are shown through pictures again. We're given the means of remembering what's significant, what can pull us forward and help us on our journey to face the many challenges that come our way.
Next Sunday at the same time, we have Miceal Ledwith. Miceal is a very distinguished person. His life was spent as a Catholic priest and then working at the Vatican, and then he kind of separated himself from that heritage and went into great depth researching Jesus, researching what Jesus had done in this time between age 12 and age 30 and all of this. So he did a lot of very pointed research in theology. He ran across Orbs, and he then became, I think, still the world's most prolific orb photographer with way over 150,000 orb photos in his computers. And so we will have him as guest. He's also the co-author of our first book, the 2007 book, The Orb Project. Then we have a pause. We decided that on Mother's Day we would have you available to be with your take a break and be with your families. And then on the 20th, no, is it the 20th? Yes, on the 20th of May, we will have William Teller, Professor Teller, who used to be a colleague of mine, or we used to be colleagues at Stanford University in material science, and neither one knew of the interests of the other. So anyway, Bill Teller is a very distinguished person. He has done fantastic research on the effect of the mind on matter. And you will have the possibility of asking questions, and we will draw the connection between that and Orbs and the whole field of health and healing. And then this will then be further emphasized in our last session on Sunday the 27th of May, when Professor Norm Shealy will be and Norm Shealy, he is just a fantastic person with a big heart and an enormous experience and knowledge in the field of alternative healing and well-being. Although he himself has an MD and a PhD education and is leading a university in the field of alternative healing. So this is something to look forward. We are excited to have them on the program, all of these three people, and we're looking very much forward to talking to them.
And we thank you very much for taking the time and tuning in, and especially also for organizing this, Robin Johnson, and then Mike and Caitlin and your team to make it possible that we can connect here via the airwaves.
Yes, thanks to all of you, especially, let me add Mike, because he helped me enormously. Gundi said it, but he helped me enormously to set this whole thing up.
Push up the right button.
To push the right button.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, all.